Hi everyone, in this video we will be discussing about the MCP architecture. So let's quickly recall what is MCP. MCP is an open source standard for connecting AI application to external systems. This was introduced by Anthropic. And when we look at MCP, it is very much similar to USB port that is being used for currently connecting the electronic devices. Before USB-C was introduced, there were different ports that were available for connecting different devices, which was a problem. But once this USB-C was introduced, it has become very easy. Similar to that, MCP is going to provide a protocol to connect to AI applications. That is the major revolution that has happened when we want to build AI agents. And when you look at MCP, it is providing a standardized way for connecting AI applications to external systems. So we have already seen in the previous video, why do we need to connect to external systems? Why can't LLM can do everything by itself? As we all know, LLM's knowledge has got a cutoff date, and our usage is not going to be only based on the past history. Our systems will require the real-time data to do greater things, right? So when you want real-time data, you will be connecting to the external system. That is very much required. That is being achieved by using MCP. It doesn't mean that MCP is the first thing. This is the first one. No. Previously, we had tools which were helping to connect to the external systems, and all the LLMs were having tool calling capabilities. Starting from which was introduced by OpenAI, all the LLMs, few LLMs, not all the LLMs, few LLMs were having the tool calling capabilities. But the problem is, each one were following different formats, so it was difficult for users to create it. When you are creating particular application, if you are using a LLM for the knowledge, processing the knowledge, at later point, if you want to change the LLM, then it becomes difficult. You have to change the syntax, you have to make some changes in the code, which takes time. That has been overcome when we look at this MCP. MCP's main objective is to make tool calling easy with different kind of LLMs. So this is just a picture showing how the MCP is helping us. So you can see that these are AI applications. AI applications can be like Cloud Desktop, or you can have a ID like Cloud Code, and you can also have your own clients, AI applications which are running, and you can connect to data sources. For example, we can connect to database like Postgres, SQLite, or else we can connect to Git, Sentry, everything. And also we can connect to Slack, Google, you can send mails, you can connect to Google Drives, and you can develop applications. And when we look at the capability of MCP, we can just imagine like it will be helping you to schedule your meetings. So it can access your Google Calendar, Notion, mails. If you are providing access, it can access and it can plan a day for you. Like you are having a personal assistant who can manage your time, who can tell the meeting schedules. You can develop an agent which can access your Google Calendar, Notion, and then mails, everything, whatever is required, and then it will assist you in planning your day. And also we know that nowadays Cloud Code has become very popular, and it is helping us to generate the entire web page when the Figma design is ready. And also that you can build an enterprise chatbot which can access multiple databases within the organization. With that, we can provide a very analyzed chat. You can, rather than just looking at the questions and answering, you can ask question which will be requiring a lot of analysis on multiple data, that can also be built using this MCP. And also more computational heavy task, like you can build a model, AI model 3D design on Blender. We know that Blender is a software which requires a lot of computation. We can use that to print, we can make some 3D printers and so on. And why do we require MCP is because it's going to help multiple people's, multiple stakeholders life easy. For example, when you look at developers, for developers it will reduce the development time and complexity of building the agent, right, for building or integrating with the AI application or the agent. And when you look at AI applications or agent, it provides access to the ecosystem of data sources. That can be multiple data sources that are available. The AI application can choose according to its requirement. It will be like a pool of tools and apps that are available. The AI application can choose according to its need, and then it can do the job easily. That is an advantage. And when we look at end users, we can have more capable AI applications which will be helping us in real-time basis, looking at real-time data and so on. That is the major advantage why we should know MCP. And when we look at scope of the MCP, these are the multiple things that is related to MCP. So if you want to have a good hold on the topic, then you can look at it. First thing is, you can just go and look into the documentation as well. There is MCP specification which outlines the implementation requirements. Basically, it's a client server architecture. We will discuss in detail. So this MCP specification outlines the implementation requirements for the client and the servers, and there are multiple SDKs for programming languages like Python, Java, and then you have also got for other languages like Ruby. There are multiple SDKs which you can use. JavaScript is very popular. You can use for JavaScript as well. So you can use according to your necessity. Whatever SDK is required, you can go and use it in the MCP SDK part. And then you have got development tools. As we know, during development time, it is very important to check whether the agent or the tool what you are building is coming as per your expectations, right? For that, it is providing MCP inspector, which we will be looking in another session. And also there are several reference implementations that is already available. We can go and check it out and we can use for multiple things, like even for OpenCV there is a MCP server. For databases we have got multiple MCP servers which will be helping us to integrate those packages and tools into our agents. And when we look at the key participants in the MCP architecture, as I told you, basically it's going to be a client server architecture. Apart from client and server, there is something called as host. So what is host is? Host is going to be the A application which is going to coordinate and manage one or multiple clients. So when we look at MCP host, for example, Cloud Desktop can be a MCP host, right? And it can connect to multiple clients based on the requirement. At a single point of time, it may connect to one client, but it has the capability to create the connection to the required client according to the query what it is processing, and then do it. So basically it's going to be MCP host which has the capability to manage one or more MCP clients. And when we look at MCP client, it's going to be actually the component which is going to maintain the connection with the server and obtain the required context from the server and give it to the host. The host will use it for further processing. And MCP server is the program that provides the context, that is going to serve the context according to the client request. So the client request will have what context it requires, and the server will look at the client request and give the context. So this is a simple architecture which is showing us. So this is the MCP host, basically a application. Here we have demonstrated 3 clients, and you can see that it will make the connection to the corresponding servers. The first client is connecting to the Sentry server, second one is connecting to the file system server, and the third one is connecting to the database server. Like this we can have n number of servers and we can connect to that. So whenever the MCP host wants to connect to a client, it creates an instance of the client, makes the connection, establish the connection to the server, and the client fetches the data. And now we will be talking about 2 important layers in MCP. First one is data layer. Data layer is the low level layer which defines the JSON RPC based protocol for client server communication, how the syntax should be, everything. So this part will include lifecycle management and core primitives that are required, such as tools, resources, prompts and notification. And the second layer is the transport layer, which is going to be higher than data layer, which is going to help us to make the communication between the channels, that enables data exchanges between clients and servers. So there will be transport specific connection establishment, managing messaging, framing and authorization. So data layer is going to handle the life cycle as we discussed. So it's going to handle connection initialization, capability negotiation. So in capability negotiation, basically it will know what are the capabilities, what are the services that are being provided by that particular server, and it will also take care of terminating the connection between the client and server when the particular functionality is completed. And the server features are enabled by the data layer. So it provides the core functionality including tools for AI actions, resources that are required for context data, and prompts for interaction with the template. And the client features also. So these client features will enable the server to ask. Actually clients, we know that in general servers will be having features and the client has to know the features so that it can make use of the server, right? But in this MCP we will also have something called as client features, right? So these client features will be integrated by the server and it will know how to use it. Like there are certain things like hosting the LLM, right? For example, if a particular query requires using of LLM, right, then the server will not connect to the LLM. It will leave it to the choice of the client. So client will be making the LLM call and giving back the data which is required, and then the server will further process it and give the result to the client, right? And also elicit input from the user. Sometimes it may be requiring some interaction with the user, whether it can proceed or not. There may be two options, there may be two ways in which it has to proceed. So it may have to interact with the user, right? So such things will be client features, and the server will be connecting and checking it, and also some log messages will be maintained to the client which will be useful. So these are the client features that will be available, whether it is supporting LLM calls, whether it is supporting elicit input, whether it is going to be interactive or not, and also what log messages that will be maintained by the client. Next is utility features, which is additional capabilities like notifications, right? So what is notification is, the server will get periodically updated, right? And when it is getting updated, it will send notification to the clients so that they are aware that there is an updation. Sometimes there may be change in the way a particular tool will be called. Sometimes it may be like new tools are being added, right? So the real-time updates will be communicated to the clients and they will be tracking the progress. Next is the transport layer. Actually, transport layer abstracts the communication details. There are three types in which we can make STD-IO transport. This is going to be the local processes, right? When we are going to run the MCP on our local machines, then we will be using this STD-IO transport. And streamable, next type of transport is streamable HTTP transport. This will be used when you are going to have a server client that is being hosted. So this HTTP post for client server messages will be used in the streamable HTTP transport with optional servers and events for streaming capabilities. And this will enable remote server communication. As we discussed, when the server is going to be remotely somewhere else, we can use this particular option to connect, and also support standard HTTP authentication methods like bearer tokens, API keys and customer headers. And MCP usually recommends OAuth to obtain authentication tokens. And when we look at the data layer protocols, this is going to be part of the MCP that defines the way developers can share context from MCP servers to the MCP clients. And MCP uses JSON RPC2, which is the underlying RPC protocol, and client and server send requests to each other and respond accordingly. And notifications, as we discussed, will be helpful when there is some upgradation on the side of the server and there is no response actually required from the client side. Generally, if server is making some communication, then a request or something, it will expect response. For notification, it doesn't expect any responses. And now just quickly discuss about lifecycle management. MCP is a stateful protocol which requires lifecycle management. So the purpose is to negotiate the capabilities between the client and the server support, right? That is the purpose of this lifecycle management. And there are three important primitives when we look at this MCP. First one is the tools, right? Set of tools will be there. Tools are the executable functions that the AI application can invoke when it wants to perform some actions like file operations or API calls or database queries. Then this server will be providing some tools which will be called by the client. Second one is the resources. So resources will be generally like file contents or database records or API responses, basically something like text or image or video or audio, any type of data source that will be available there, and it will provide the contextual information for the AI application. So it is not like something is getting executed, but the server maintains some kind of file so that it will know, it will serve some contextual information for the AI application. Third one is the prompts. So prompts are actually reusable templates which will help to structure the interactions within the language models, like system prompts can be there, few short examples. So they will also be part of the server, which will be useful, which will be used by the clients whenever it is required. And this sampling is a very important feature which is popularly discussed everywhere when we talk about MCP. Actually, sampling is the one which allows the server to request, as I told previously, whenever the server is having some part of the functionality which requires LLM, it will not call the LLM by itself. It will give it to the side of the client, right? It will give it to the option of the client which LLM they want to use and so on. So the sampling is the one which is helping that to be achieved. So it allows servers to request language model completions, right? And from the client side's AI application, this will help to connect. It will make a request to the client, and the client will be connecting to the LLM of its choice and giving back the data which will be further processed. So it is useful when the server's authors wants to access language model, that's what I told, and want to stay model independent. They do not want to decide the model, give it to the choice of the client. And they can use sampling or complete method to request a language model from the client's AI application. So apart from that, we have got elicitation, as we discussed, which will allow the users to request, allow the server to request additional information from the users, right? There may be some choice, like server author want to get more information like confirmation of an action, whether we can proceed or not, and so on. And logging is another one primitive which will enable servers to send log messages to clients for debugging and monitoring purposes. And notifications or protocol support, which will help them to enable dynamic updates between the server and the clients. So when the server's tool changes or new functionality is being added, notifications will be sent, and notifications are also going to follow this JSON RPC2 format of messages without expecting a response. So the data layer is providing a step-by-step walkthrough of the MCP client server. We will discuss in the next video. We will now just discuss another example with exact format everything in the next video. Thank you.